The bullet had been in my pocket for 3 years. Not in my rifle, not in my sidearm, in my pocket, wrapped in a piece of cloth torn from Corporal Webb's uniform. The last round from a firefight that took 7 of my brothers. I kept it as a promise to myself. When I found the Velthari commander who ordered that ambush, this bullet would end him. Now he knelt before me in chains, and I couldn't pull the trigger. Sergeant Chen, Captain Morrison's voice crackled through my earpiece. The prisoner transfer shuttle arrives in 6 hours. Keep him alive until then. I stared at the alien warlord through the energy barrier of his cell. Keth'aran the Merciless, they called him. Butcher of Proxima Colony. The architect of 100 human massacres. His forearms hung limply at his sides, the bioluminescent patterns on his gray skin pulsing a weak, defeated blue. "You have something of mine," he said, his voice a rumble that resonated in my chest. I touched the bullet through my jacket. "I have a lot of things of yours. A friend's dog tags. A sister's last letter that never got sent. A wedding ring that, the mercy round." His crimson eyes fixed on my pocket. I can sense it. Quantum-tagged ammunition. My personal sidearm's last shot. I froze. That bullet, Webb had taken it from a fallen Velthari officer during the ambush. We thought it was just standard ammunition. "It was meant for me," Keth'aran continued. "A failsafe. If I was ever captured, my second-in-command was to execute me with it. A death with honor, rather than interrogation. Your second-in-command is dead." I made sure of that. Yes. Something flickered in those alien eyes. Respect? Pain? You humans are remarkably thorough in your vengeance. The base alarm screamed to life. I spun toward the door as explosions rocked the facility. Through the reinforced window, I saw Velthari dropships descending, but their markings were wrong. Not military. These were the crimson sigils of the Velthari Purity Covenant, a faction so extreme that even Keth'aran's forces had fought against them. "They're here for me," Keth'aran said, his voice flat. "Not to rescue. To erase. A warlord who lost to humans cannot be allowed to survive. It would prove we can be beaten." Good. I checked my rifle. Saves me the trouble. They will kill every human on this base to reach me. Every scientist, every medic, every soldier. They do not take prisoners, Sergeant. Not human ones. I knew he was right. The Covenant's reputation preceded them. I'd seen the aftermath of their cleansings, entire colonies reduced to ash and bone. Another explosion. Closer. The lights flickered. "Release me," Keth'aran said. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So you can escape? So you can rebuild your forces and so I can die fighting alongside you." He rose to his full 7-foot height, chains rattling. "I have no forces left, Sergeant. No ships, no soldiers, no purpose. But I know Covenant tactics. I know their weaknesses. And I would rather die killing them than kneeling before them. Why should I believe anything you say? Because I could have lied. I could have promised you my eternal loyalty, offered you secrets, begged for my life. Instead, I offer you the only truth I have left. The Covenant are the greater evil, and I am already a dead man." The door behind me buckled. I had seconds to decide. I thought of Webb, of Rodriguez, Kim, Okonkwo, Pearson, Tanaka, Singh. 7 names carved into my memory. This creature had given the order that killed them, but the Covenant would kill everyone else. "If you try to run," I said, pressing the release code, "I'll use my last bullet on you myself." The energy barrier dropped. Keth'aran stepped forward, and for a moment we stood face to face. The soldier and the warlord, the avenger and the butcher. "I know," he said. "That is why I trust you, Sergeant Chen." The door exploded inward. I'd seen Velthari fight before. I'd studied their tactics, learned their patterns, exploited their weaknesses. I thought I understood them. I was wrong. Keth'aran moved like nothing I'd ever seen. 4 arms wielding improvised weapons, his body flowing between Covenant soldiers with brutal grace. He fought not with the rigid precision of a commander, but with the desperate fury of a warrior who had nothing left to lose. "Left corridor," he barked, snapping a Covenant soldier's neck while blocking another's blade. 12 more thermal charges. They planned to collapse this section. I didn't question how he knew. I just moved. We fought our way through corridors slick with blood. Some human, some Velthari, all the same crimson in the emergency lighting. I found survivors along the way. Dr. Vasquez from the medical wing, 2 privates barely old enough to shave, a grizzled maintenance tech with a plasma welder. "Sergeant, you're with... that's..." Private Oduya stared at Keth'aran with naked terror. "He's with me," I said. Move. But, move. We fell into a rhythm, Keth'aran and I. He would identify threats before I could see them, calling out positions in clipped tactical shorthand that I understood instinctively. I would cover his blind spots, the angles his species' physiology couldn't account for. It should have been impossible, fighting alongside the being who had orchestrated my squad's deaths. But survival has a way of simplifying things. We made it to the secondary hangar, a defensible position with access to emergency shuttles. The Covenant had anticipated this. A squad of their elite waited inside. I count 8, I whispered, peering around the corner. Heavy armor, pulse rifles. 9, Keth'aran corrected. 1 cloaked, upper left platform. I looked again. Nothing. I don't trust me. Those 2 words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. 3 years of hatred versus 30 minutes of necessity. I adjusted my aim to the upper left platform and fired. A Covenant soldier materialized as my shot found its mark, his cloaking field sparking out as he tumbled from his perch. Keth'aran was already moving, drawing fire as I guided our civilians to cover. The fight was brutal and fast. Dr. Vasquez took a grazing hit to her shoulder but kept moving. Private Oduya found his courage somewhere between the 3rd and 4th enemy he dropped. The maintenance tech, I never did learn his name, used his plasma welder to seal a door against reinforcements, buying us precious seconds. When the last Covenant soldier fell, we stood in a hangar full of bodies and the smell of burnt ozone. The shuttle, I said, pointing to the only functional craft. Vasquez, can you fly it? I can try. Keth'aran hadn't moved. He stood over the body of the cloaked soldier, staring down at the corpse's face. You knew him, I said. It wasn't a question. My nephew. My sister's son. His bioluminescence flickered. Grief, I realized. That color was grief. He joined the Covenant after I was captured. To cleanse the family shame. I'm sorry. The words came out before I could stop them. I was apologizing to a war criminal for killing his family member. The absurdity of it should have made me laugh or vomit or both. Keth'aran looked at me, those crimson eyes unreadable. You are a strange species, Sergeant Chen. You can hate and pity in the same breath. Yeah, well, we're complicated. The hangar doors groaned. The Covenant had brought cutting equipment. Go, Keth'aran said. I will hold them. That's suicide. It is what I deserve. What I have earned through a lifetime of bloodshed. He picked up a fallen pulse rifle. Then another. Then another. 4 arms. 4 weapons. You said it yourself. I killed your squad. Your family. Let me die giving you time to escape. I should have said yes. I should have left him to his fate, taken my survivors, and never looked back. It would have been justice. It would have been revenge. Instead, I grabbed his upper right arm. You don't get to die a martyr, I said. Not after everything you've done. You want redemption? You live? You face what you've done. You help us end this war? You would spare me after all I have taken from you? I'm not sparing you. I'm not sparing you. I'm condemning you. I met his eyes. Living with guilt is harder than dying. Trust me. I know. The doors began to buckle. Now get on the goddamn shuttle, Warlord. That's an order. 3 weeks on the run. The shuttle had taken damage during our escape, forcing us to make emergency repairs on a frozen moon in the outer territories. The Covenant was hunting us. Human command wasn't much better. The moment they learned I'd released Keth'aran, I'd become a traitor in their eyes. They will execute you, Keth'aran said, watching me repair a conduit coupling. Your own people. For saving their lives. Probably. I wiped grease from my hands. Wouldn't be the first time military bureaucracy screwed someone over. Yet, you accept this. I accept that I made a choice. The consequences are just consequences. He was quiet for a long moment. The survivors had established an uneasy tolerance of him over the weeks. Dr. Vasquez had even treated a wound on his lower left arm when it became infected, though she'd done it in stony silence. On Velthar Prime, Keth'aran said slowly, there is a concept. Keth'aran. It translates roughly as bloodbound enemy. 2 warriors who have fought each other to a standstill, who have taken equally from one another, become linked. Neither can kill the other without destroying a part of themselves. Is that what we are? I do not know what we are, Sergeant. I only know that when I imagine your death, I feel something I have not felt in centuries. He paused. Dismay. Careful, I said. That almost sounded like you care. I am as surprised as you. That night, the Covenant found us. They came in force this time. 3 cruisers, a full invasion complement. We had a damaged shuttle, 7 people, and dwindling ammunition. There's a minefield, I said, studying the tactical display. Old war ordnance from the first contact conflicts. If we can lead them through it, they will detect the mines, Keth'aran said. Unless someone provides a distraction. A target they want badly enough to throw caution aside. He looked at me, and I understood. No, Sergeant, I said no. We find another way. There is no other way. He placed his upper right hand on my shoulder, the first time he'd voluntarily touched me. You have given me something I did not deserve, human. A chance to be more than a butcher. Let me use it. This isn't redemption. This is suicide with better marketing. It is balance. Your squad, 7 lives. These survivors, 7 lives. Let me trade my death for theirs. I grabbed his arm, pulling him closer. You listen to me, you four-armed bastard. I didn't drag you this far to watch you throw yourself away. We survive together, or we die together. That's the deal. Why? His voice cracked, an actual emotion breaking through centuries of control. Why do you insist on this? I am your enemy. I killed your brothers, your sisters in arms. You should want my death. I did want it. For 3 years, it's all I wanted. I pulled the bullet from my pocket, Webb's bullet, the mercy round, whatever it was. This was supposed to be my justice, my closure. But killing you won't bring them back. Nothing will. And somewhere along the way, I realized that surviving, actually living, not just existing, that's the only thing that matters. I pressed the bullet into his palm. So you hold on to this. You carry it like I did. And when you're tempted to throw your life away, you look at it and remember, someone thought you were worth saving. Keth'aran stared at the bullet, his bioluminescence cycling through colors I couldn't identify. Your species, he finally said, is terrifying. I know. I turned back to the tactical display. Now help me figure out how we all survive this. The plan was insane. It was also the only option we had. The minefield was dense but navigable, if you knew the safe paths. Keth'aran did. His forces had mapped it during the war. We plotted a course that would take us through the center while appearing to flee in panic. They will follow, Keth'aran said. The Covenant values doctrine over adaptation. If they believe we are desperate, they will pursue without caution, and if they don't, then we die quickly instead of slowly. I consider that a reasonable alternative. The first cruiser took the bait. Its captain, eager for glory, pushed into the minefield before his companions. The explosion lit up the void like a second sun. The second cruiser was more careful, but we had anticipated that. Private Oduya, who had apparently been a competitive gamer before enlisting, had rigged our shuttle's damaged sensors to broadcast phantom signals. The cruiser chased ghosts into a cluster of proximity mines. The third cruiser hung back, its commander too smart to fall for our tricks. They are launching boarding pods, Keth'aran reported. 12, no, 16. They mean to take the shuttle intact. Can we outrun them? Not with our engine damage. I looked around the shuttle. Dr. Vasquez was tending to Private Chen, no relation, who had taken shrapnel during our last engagement. The maintenance tech was keeping our life support running through sheer willpower. Oduya sat at the sensor station, his hands trembling but steady. These people had trusted me. They had followed me into hell because I'd promised them a way out. I'll draw them off, I said. The EV suit, no bounty dre. Keth'aran's voice was firm. You are not the only one who can sacrifice. I'm not sacrificing. I'm buying time. There's a difference. There is not. He moved to the airlock and I noticed he was carrying every weapon we'd salvaged, all 4 arms loaded. You told me that living was the only thing that mattered. Did you lie? Did you lie, Sara Chen? It was the first time he'd used my first name. No, I whispered. Then live. Lead these people to safety. And carry this. He pulled the bullet from where he'd kept it, pressed against his chest, over his heart. I cannot give you back your squad. I cannot undo the atrocities I have committed. But I can give you this. My life, freely offered, for those you have sworn to protect. Not because you forced me, because you showed me it was possible to be more than what I was. Keth'aran, Keth'aran. He touched his forehead to mine, a gesture I somehow understood was profound. Bloodbound enemy. Bloodbound friend. In my language, the words are the same. Perhaps there is wisdom in that. The boarding pods were closing. You stubborn, honorable, infuriating. Yes, he said. All of these things. Goodbye, Sara. He cycled the airlock and launched himself into the void. 4 arms blazing, his bioluminescence flaring bright white, a challenge. A declaration, a beacon. The boarding pods turned to follow. I wanted to scream. I wanted to turn the shuttle around, to drag him back, to tell him that this wasn't what I meant, this wasn't the lesson. Sergeant. Dr. Vasquez's voice was gentle. He's given us a window. Don't waste it. I looked at the tactical display. The pods were converging on Keth'aran, who was carving through them with the fury of a dying star. The third cruiser was moving to intercept him, its weapons charging. The path to the jump point was clear. "Oh, do ya?" I said, my voice hollow. "Plot a course for the neutral zone. Maximum speed. Sergeant, shouldn't we do it?" The shuttle lurched forward. Through the rear sensors, I watched Keth'aran fight. Watched him take wound after wound. Watched his bioluminescence flicker and fade. Watched him drag 3 boarding pods into the minefield with him when his weapons finally failed. Then, the third cruiser vanished in a chain reaction of explosions. And then we were in hyperspace, and he was gone. 6 months later, the war ended. The footage of Keth'aran's last stand had been recovered by a salvage team, broadcast across both human and Velthari networks. A war criminal dying to save humans from his own people's extremists. It shattered narratives on both sides. Peace talks that had stalled for decades suddenly found momentum. I testified at 17 hearings, told Keth'aran's story until my voice gave out, argued that his sacrifice proved something neither species had been willing to believe, that we could change. They gave me a medal. I gave it to Dr. Vasquez. Now I stood at a memorial, a small one, on a forgotten moon, where a warlord had died so that 7 people could live. The same number he had killed. I placed the bullet at the base of the marker. "You were wrong, you know," I said to the empty air. "About the words being the same. Enemy and friend. They're not identical. They're a choice. Every moment we choose which one to be." I touched the cold stone. "You chose friend." In the end, that's all that mattered. The wind carried no response. But somewhere, in the silence between stars, I like to think a 4-armed bastard was listening. And maybe, finally, finding peace.